This first one is called Minotaurs, Minotaurs. Look at the way those people weave through their labyrinths. Look at that thread between lovers who only bark at each other. Look at the rope that stretches from a pedestrian's neck toward the house of a person he wishes he didn't know. A grudge is the mountain you can turn into a molehill, but never blast off the planet. Look at those support groups paying each other for fracking techniques against grudges. Looking at those tractors failing to smash a 10-year-old anger. Sometimes we forget our grudges, still visit Skype at the ready, not understanding why we can't press that green button. And sometimes we find ourselves standing in the wings of a Willie Nelson concert next to someone we cannot forgive and tell them something we had meant to take to our catacombs, and they are the only person who understands. Insomnia. Pictures of ruffled hair, pictures of skyward eyes. I am too much with you. Pupils drift sideways. We drift to flashes of orange, a floodlit alley. Constellations play restless checkers outside. I am too much with you. You find me in your roasted chicken. You see me in a splashy helicopter. Pictures of hair growing out of pupils. You're a prophet who goes to the bathroom to freshen up, apply lip gloss, apply shadow. When you reemerge, no one recognizes you. They declare you missing, call a search party. You join it too. Spend 5 hours looking for a missing prophet before realizing it's you. I wasn't there to tell them who you were. I wasn't there to tell yourself who you were, and yet I am too much with you. I am in your every text message to all the blessed fuckers in the celestial bathtub. Pictures of curtsy, pictures of various escapes. You want to find out more about your banshee parents by seeing them through my eyes. I want to close my eyes, but my eyes are spotlights. Every spotlight is a thorn. Pictures of thorns. After you're found, everyone in the search party acts like you don't exist. You just want to go off someplace where people won't roll their eyes. I don't roll anything, yet I am too much with you. A Möbius strip. A cat left behind by the herd you crashed through the trees just as I set them on fire. You memorize silence. Pictures of helicopters taken from behind eyelids. I am too much your prophet. You scratch the air with my voice. You speak to me through wooden fruit. I align myself with a broken tree on the ground. Insomnia runs in the blood of our greatest rivers. There is no stronger coffee than the science fiction we've become. California. Someone's been shot. Someone's still trying to break the invisible wall. We all live in the yellow. You take the bus without pain. A perfect Victorian conclusion to a terrifying Sunday night. I have postcards of you smiling. What a shock to find you in love. The gratitude of it, the warmed up park benches, the zen of coming back to the same ice cream. Our hearts won't leave us alone. Well, we weren't trying to be alone. We are too focused on immortality, which means reflection in the eyes of the not yet dead. We stare at lava. Sometimes we throw money at grief. If we have questions, they've all been drowned. You were good at shutting the shutters. Today, California almost reached them with a paintbrush. Old movies love us without bringing back our friends, now dead, who watched them with us. Of course, we are also deader now, even in love. The TV show about the vodka drinking policeman playing basketball with a fish now feels like a quirky mentor, and we start crying. When you hail the cab to the next moment, don't forget to pick up your previous mind from the puddle, just for archival purposes. I will never forget you. The Cliffs of Jamestown. In those days, you loved telephoto lenses and sunsets, chatting by the old pilgrim cemetery or almost running off the road together in a delivery van. Did we capture each other for a few afternoons? I remember your humorous policing of coffee and the marshes the last time I saw you. In those days, love sprung from sticky notes, inconveniently recycled by custodians. Today, the Queen of England welcomed you to honor your award-winning TV role as an executioner's personal assistant, cleaning the severed heads, packing away the guts. Today, if I wrote you, you would surely assume it's only to get into the TV business. I imagine you'd sooner leap off the cliffs of Jamestown, Rhode Island, than respond to me in your trademark disarming way. So I keep to myself, rereading fan fiction menus of the last suppers of the executed, mouthing the graceful words you comfort them with as they try to keep from throwing up. And I wonder where you would have been if I had recognized your luminosity better, if we had consented to kiss, moved together across the country. Would you still be driving a delivery van, too often the wrong way down one-way streets, as the walls of brutalist buildings seduced you with sweaters? It's been 20 years. So many losers have wrapped cultures around their onomatopoeia. So many sticky notes have coasted into the ocean. So many hells have lost their cognitive dissonance. We happy hour, not thinking of each other, barely recalling the soundtracks behind names we creatively misheard to charm. And did you ever go back to those marshes? In the early morning, the blood on the walls of the execution chamber smells like Persephone. The doorknob reflects the sun in the shape of a semicolon. God is still working us. I see your face behind my beater's tinted windshield. The only unstaged picture I took of you. A sunset waffled behind the oceanfront garbage container, and static meddled with the romantic song on the radio. In the future. In the future, every car will come with a tree affixed to its exhaust pipe, soaking up the carbon dioxide. Emissions inspections will be conducted by gardeners, verifying the health of the tree. Boys taking girls to the prom better take care of their tree, lest they face the girls' fathers watching their exhausts from second-floor windows. Fire brigades will compete in friendly Olympics where juries measure the size of the giant trees on the back of their trucks, and firemen run high-risk demonstrations of how they can put out fires without burning their tree. The trees will be grown in high-security gardens, artificially engineered to speed up their photosynthesis, absorbing thousands of times more carbon dioxide than the trees we see today on Park Avenue. It will be considered good luck to have garden gnomes in your car. The Bergen County garden gnome manufacturers will suddenly become a giant of industry. Garden gnome heirs will put on airs and open art galleries. In the future, every town will have windmills lining the streets where trees used to be. Streets will be painted white. White asphalt absorbs less heat. Strong sunglasses will be a must for motorists. And in the sky, an artificial Zeus will be adding clouds in strategic places to dim the world just enough that glaciers come back and polar bears can drink their sodas in peace. You won't live till that day, and neither will I. Our great-great-grandchildren will be researching their ancestry and visiting the sites of our townhouses, nostalgic for the carelessness and the recklessness, the wilderness and the randomness, the horse farms and the unanticipated sequoias that sprouted wherever they pleased, unattached to the back of a car. They will say, I wish I could speak with them, and post old digital photos in their live journals, while trained ravens glide by outside with solar batteries on their wings. Last week. There used to be a rocking chair upstairs. I'd listen to the news. The news was stark. Wildlife repopulating city squares. Containment efforts always off the mark. Vending machines have long run out of prayers. Torn passports waft through the uprooted park. There used to be a rocking chair upstairs. Last week, even the poltergeists went dark. Shelter. Went on meditation, but only the snowed-in cardinals heard me. Far from any port, we're weighted by anchors made of phantoms. A few minutes of blossoms looking so very delightful until the tremors return. And notice how the dolphins of Venice now hover like psychic blimps. Multiple personalities shake off the idealism. You can't always get what the continental drift carries toward you. The ex-Navy put on his festive flannel shirt on the happiest day of his new normal, but no one showed up to greet him. They were all hiding in their fur closets, talking to ghosts of minks. The dogs pecked on tasteless ice cream, monuments to the same butcher in every city square. I can always play 20 questions with you. Make it 96 questions. Until the phone goes silent. God, no, the default auto response. How laughable, the lion-headed goats of our pasts. The sunlight paints your brushes with orange and yellow and an alive martini. Or did you look at the distant bridge across the majestic bay and find yourself having wishes you couldn't put anywhere? They usually go away by themselves. Don't worry too much. Just give it 30 or 40 years. Just like the monuments. But still we imagine a back room in our inner luxury hotels where the prisoner called integrity has been safe and sound all this time, kept alive by the unprincipled genocidal brutes out of gratitude for some act of courage he pulled before even amoeba had evolved. We're silly like that. Welcome to your checkmate, mate. Welcome to your legacy. Well, the earth will swallow these ideas whole with some crunchy lava. And out beyond, nothing much will change for the worse. Even the empty barks are still pleasant to think about, blossoming with the sound of past year's tennis balls. Could we have imagined? Of course we could. Second person. After dinner, we walked toward your hotel. It was Sunday, and most benches were full of memories. The cafes were minimum security, and the bookstore blared its rich pleasures. You pointed out the slightly unruly rhinoceros on the pier, seamlessly mixing your third novel into the city. I asked about your contemporary jazz lessons, and you told me about some snow outside your home. For a while, we said nothing. You mentioned your collection of fancy rats. It must have been just past Liberty Street that the connection between us entered permanent record. From now on, all spicy chocolate would smell of your brief visit to the city. What was the enigma in your off-again lover? The difficulty in not getting hit by a train? Instead of knowledge, a green screen. The music wants to take off but stays a hooded falcon. One must feed it toy airplanes. At the door of the most reportedly boring hotel you'd ever stayed at, you reminded me you were only the second person I'd ever met subject to an active death sentence in your home country. How do you talk about something like that? Round and round goes your webinar. Raindrop continents on the window run toward each other in slow motion. The photos I took that night were blurry, but my best. The means. First the revolution, then the dumbfoundment, at the bullets in the brains of the cautious, at the sinking trenches of the discarded dreamers, engineers, idealist farmers. Don't admit to having expected better. Don't admit to anything. Sip spring water. Time to stow away the regrets in caskets always comes too late and avoids eye contact. The informant. The man in the vest adjusted his hair. His eyes were electric blue. You knew who he was and why he was there. Sadly, no one else knew. Then Boris came out with his Trotsky quip, said Trotsky wasn't that bad. You noticed the blue-eyed man bite his lip. Nothing more would need to be said. He watched it unfold for the rest of the night, the way Boris kept getting lit, the charm he turned on, his teammates' delight at his escapist wit. The next morning, you knew not to look for him. His room was empty and clean. The hotel had checked in no one by that name. He was never heard from again. It's been decades. Your children are teaching school. Last December, the curtain fell. Some teammates of yours fell to alcohol. You're retired, still in decent health. You think of Boris, that talking dead on that night of pickles and vodka, and the shadow of Azrael over his head in the shape of a blue-eyed informant. Was he sent to the gulag, or was he shot in the head right there in the yard? You will never switch off this thought. You will never get a fresh start. There are bullet holes in the back of the bus and behind the old kindergarten. There is blood in the benches where fathers drink kvass and ex-convicts make concept art. You walk these streets every single day. You drive your Jeep among ghosts. You've grown accustomed to it. It's okay. Nothing revealed, nothing lost. Only sometimes, at home, you let out a sigh. Your granddaughter looks up at you. You notice her look, raise an eyebrow, smile. Her eyes are electric blue. The collapse of the Union. We all agree he was a wicked man, unworthy of the fame he had amassed, neurotic, petty, sickeningly bland. Billboards bemoan the easy way he passed. Ambassadors of love smeared dogshit on his gravestone sooner than his corpse turned blue. I cracked champagne at hearing he was gone. If you ever met him, shame on you. No mercy for the hateful thugs who feel the need to come to his defense. They'll see their assets wiped, their crimes revealed, their homesteads seized. Economy depends on revenue these seizures generate. Pale seagulls pick stale bread from our cracked plate. Post-war. All night the phone rang. Bread loaves aped gravestones. When he found poems written in blood, he could only scream them. No musician knew how to carry weight. But always, always the memory of that sweater falling off her shoulder. Like it or not, she was an icon, a postage stamp. The sweat on her chest, the friendliness of her hands patting an usher's back in a bombed theater. Valentines hung on every tree, replacing the decomposed executed. It was hard not to think of yourself as a ghost. Still, somehow love continued to tighten its biceps. He drank a milkshake made of ground up doors. How quickly the fog moved in. The last era. And at this point, how strange to see them, the dry flowers of a passé national crisis. The stone balloons of nostalgia. No skins recall the stabbing. Still there is comfort in those zombies, The faded names, they used to be tears. The dog stops attacking. The violence lingers. The sunset is slow to fade. Walking sticks grow into cages. Who called them brilliant for dying? What would they have gotten for enduring? The tunnel angled ever upward. No one dug up the remains. Past fireflies. At dusk, they break to touch each other's hair, a lifetime's worth of lore in a mild smile. They make their way past fireflies, up the stair. Their flannel shirts rest in a vibrant pile. This afternoon she killed a month-old calf. Tomorrow he'll drive its severed thighs to nearby markets, sold for less than half the steakhouse price, while blood on haystacks dries, and lightly syncopated ding-ding-dings of phones deliver news from city friends. Gunpoint compassion, tingling boxing rings of culture war, systemic self-defense. As years swerve past, few friends will drive 4 hours to traipse their verdant paths, to taste their brie, to make like white models and soft flowers and eavesdrop on their evening vis-a-vis. Only the record player will spin and spin Leonard Cohen by the warm red stove, as pairs of vultures roost on trucks to sting the eye with unapologetic love. And then, your blue wheelbarrow isn't used for much. Not by your widow, not by Junior. Your garden's pissed away its beehive touch. Your motorboat smells like a funeral. Light drizzle sprays your chessboard, moving rooks. Your poetry is sleeping in your books. Your unsent emails hover in the cloud somewhere in a quartz pile under a street. Snoring over his burger and his stout, Jesse can almost hear your stomping feet, your tennis balls brushing against the net, your swear words when you lost your final set. And in the valley, rolling sprinklers still trip on the holes your footprints made in dirt that evening when it took you so much skill just to put on your favorite dress shirt. Brian recalls your least abrasive joke, gulps soda water, and begins to choke. Your ivy sags like a departed snake. Ghosts of your cheeses haunt the cutting board. Senators nurse your policy mistake. Voicemail preserves your last dismissive word. Your portrait, no one dared to show or frame, rots in the attic with a made-up name. The submarine. And so you find yourself walking with your father along the waterfront. So far, you only exchanged a few syllables. And you know everything about your father, but imagine he's come back from a decade in a red light district, too busy with STDs to pay more attention to you. There are orphans everywhere, even those with parents alive. And there is trash everywhere, and people pick up the trash and throw it at each other. And your father's here, but still he won't talk, though the sides of his mouth are moving a little. You console yourself with the thought that he's just one man, and his name would be Danny Boy in another life, because he's always at war, but still has all those songs going through his head. Twice a week, the garbage collectors come. Every year, a useless Christmas is spent with useless homecomings, and you act like vampires in withdrawal. The sides of his mouth say, your father is here. Why can't you talk to him? And there's a submarine now, and who knows what it's doing here. But you both go on and take a tour. Your father turns out to have a senior pass, and besides, it was so boring on land. Strolling, you almost feel ready to tell him, not about love, What about your vindictive art? Hell, you never knew what you wanted to tell him about. And you still don't. But this evening you almost had it. Did you want him to show you his footsteps so you can change their direction? Did you want him to remember your jokes? Did you want him to mourn his own father better? All you remember are those wooden plaques at the spots where the wounded sailors had fallen during the war, those painted over splotches of blood on the walls. Your walls, your father's walls. You walk with your father through the submarine, and you know it's the last 2 hours of alone time you'll ever get with him, even if he's alive for many more years. And somewhere between the deck and the captain's quarters, he opens his mouth and tells you of some helpful nurse, some helpful everything, of pictures of wild horses, of boating, of chest pains, of chocolate chips, and you walk alongside him and listen. And you're the only two people on the submarine, and nothing in the world will distract you now. And this is the last poem, called Another Word for Exile. A pretentious fish out of the water does not adjust to the surrounding world. The world is not much worse than the one it used to inhabit, and which was itself far from horrific. The fish chalks up its misery to its own pretension and sleeps in resignation among shoreline snakes. A basketball player discovers the fish late at night after his long heroic session of playing ball. He sees the fish as a friend, wonders whether it would love the game as much as his father did. The streetlights sprinkle them with unphotographable glow, and a high-profile prophet observes them from a window as he turns to a new page in his chronicle. It's a day's trouble, but the fish sleeps through most of its days, smoking or simply vegetating. It will make a pass now and then, even score 3 points, but there is always that nausea, and rumors have it that the fish is heartbroken. The prophet has a lot to say on the subject. He publishes his book. It is read by miscellaneous people. Around the uncertain edges of the basketball court, there is an ever-changing crowd of observers. The all-star fish extraordinaire makes headlines. Its teammates bask in the reflected glory. Meanwhile, blackish despair flagellates the fish. It takes its admirers for granted. The fish goes to church, but to no avail. It narrowly escapes being hit by a car, but even that only gives it momentary elation. The fish is in bad shape, and everyone notices. Finally, the fish dreams of its old water, but it has no means of getting back into it. New buildings have been built between the fish and the shore, and besides, it would hardly survive there now. The prophet knows this, gives the fish advice, and when it won't listen, takes out a restraining order to keep the fish out of the water. The fish is withering away on the basketball court. Balloons and postcards that read, "I love you," fly down, but the cockeyed emptiness is always felt. And then, one day, a shady automobile of peculiar coloration comes to the stadium, and the fish experiences a Wordsworthian moment. It recalls the commissar's memento written on its hand and goes home dressed like a drunken soldier, brooding over the graying of its beard in the mirror. And there is a sleeping boy on an unmarked bench who looks at it as it passes him on the street. The boy produces a marker and dates the bench in memory of the soldier, to whom he gives a weird nickname. Then it rains, and the nickname washes off. The boy is still sleeping. The soldier, unaware of him, turns the corner. And for some reason, he suddenly wants to cry. Thank you for listening.